On the front page of the Central City Citizen newspaper on April 25th, 2024, the Scarlet Speedster known as the Flash vanishes in a crisis following a battle with his arch nemesis, the Reverse Flash. Now, what in the holy DCU does that have to do with guitars? Well, with that exact date coming up next week, I thought we'd talk about another pair of Ibanez PGM series guitars, my PGM400 that I named Barry Allen, and my custom-painted PGM301 that I named the Reverse Flash. I'm Tom Tran, and this is the show where I go in-depth into my guitar collection and that of my friends to give you all the nerdy gear goodness, like specs and pricing, but also the story, both historic and personal, about these rare and special instruments and how they got into our hands. This is the story behind the strings. Thanks for checking out this extra nerdy episode of the show. I'm very excited for this one. All the things I'm nerdy about are coming together in one episode. These are my matching Ibanez PGM Paul Gilbert series guitars that I call the Flash family. This one is a PGM400, and this one is a custom-painted PGM301. Now, before we get going, as always, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the bell icon to be notified when a new episode drops. We're still on our way to 5,000 subscribers, and when we get there, I'll be giving one of you a guitar. Details on that giveaway at the end of this video. Like we do every episode, let's start with the specs. We'll do this chart style since I'll be comparing both guitars to give you the similarities and differences between them. Also, going forward, I'm just going to say 301 or 400 when I refer to these. If you made it this far, then you know these are Paul Gilbert PGM series guitars. Also, the specs for the 301 will be the stock model because mine is clearly customized. So here we go. The 301 was available worldwide, while the 400 was only sold in Japan to the Japanese domestic market. And both were built at the Fujigen factory in Japan. Both guitars are solid body despite what looks like F-holes. Those painted on F-holes are what makes these Paul Gilbert signature guitars. And just like the PGM300, the 301 sports a basswood body painted white with black painted F-holes, black hardware, black volume knob, and a black tip on the 5-way pickup selector switch. While the 400's body is made of alder and painted in a sexy candy apple red with gold F-holes, gold hardware, a cream volume knob, and cream tip on the 5-way pickup selector switch. Unlike the PGM300, on the 301 you'll get a Goto GTC 101 fixed bridge instead of a low pro edge tremolo system. And on the 400 you'll get a very rare, even for a PGM, TZ6 vintage style tremolo. You'll find an HSH pickup combo on both guitars. The stock 301 has DiMarzio PAF Pros in the neck and bridge positions and a DiMarzio Gem single coil in the middle position, while the 400 has a DiMarzio Tone Zone in the bridge, a DiMarzio Humbucker from Hell in the neck, and a DiMarzio FS1 in the middle position. Both have an all-access neck joint, and depending on the year, they both had one-piece Wizard-style necks. Now, that never changed on the 400, but the 301 only had a Wizard neck during the 2003-2004 manufacturing year. Then from 2005 to 2008, it had a 5-piece maple walnut neck. Now, according to the serial number on my 301, it was built in May of 2004, so it's got a one-piece maple neck. The 301 has a maple fingerboard with black dot inlays, and the 400 has a rosewood fingerboard with white dot inlays. They both have 24 jumbo frets and a 25.5-inch scale. You've got black Goto SG381 tuners on the PGM301, which has a reverse headstock, and the 400 has a standard direction headstock with gold locking tuners. Now let's talk about how you can score one of these. Well, the stock model, anyway. I have no plans to sell the Reverse Flash guitar. We'll start with the PGM301 because even though it was released after the 400, sequentially it comes first because that's how numbers work. First of all, what's it worth? We go back to my personal formula of original cost plus inflation to find out what it costs in today's money. So Ibanez's USA catalogs don't give prices, so we'll have to take the price from the Japanese catalogs and do the math from there. In 2003, the PGM301 had a list price of 189,000 Japanese yen, which at the time would have been about $1,767 at the end of 2003. So let's just say $1,800, which in 2024 money is roughly $3,052 US today. So if I were looking to buy another 301, I'd say anything between $2,500 and $3,000 is a good deal. Between $3,000 and $3,500 is about fair market value, and I would not pay anything over $3,500. Now the PGM400 is a little trickier because it was a limited edition and only available in Japan and only available for 1 year. Despite that, I went through Ibanez's Japanese catalogs from 1992 to 1996 and I could not find the price for the 400. Maybe because it was a limited edition. So if you know the original cost, let me know in the comments below. However, I did find the price for the very similar PGM500, which was available worldwide and had a list price of 115,000 Japanese yen. So let's infer that the only slightly different PGM400 cost about the same, 115,000 Japanese yen in 1993, which would make it about 1,075 USD at the time. Let's do that math again with inflation. That puts it at just about $2,325 US in 2024 money. So in terms of what I would pay, anything under $2,300 is a good deal. I'd say between $2,300 and $3,000 is fair market value, and anything over $3,000 I would have to think real hard about. But again, we're inferring the price based on the similar PGM500 model, and I could be completely off base. Because the 400 was a limited edition, it could have cost way more than that. With that said, being limited makes it more rare, making it more valuable to some people. And as of this recording, there were 0 available for sale anywhere that I could find. So I guess if you're a completist and you're trying to Pokemon the PGM series, then maybe you're willing to pay more than $3,000. Again, although sequentially the PGM301 comes before the 400, the 301 wasn't released for a decade after the 400 series. So let's start with the PGM400 this time. Another rare model in the line of Paul's signature guitars, the 400 was only available in 1993. It's the first limited edition PGM guitar available only in Japan, and each was signed by Paul. I've seen it reported that only 200 were made. Now what sets it apart from the other models is the alder body as opposed to basswood like most of Paul's other signature guitars. And instead of a Floyd Rose style tremolo or even a hardtail fixed bridge, it's one of only 2 PGM guitars with a vintage style tremolo, in this case a TZ6. The other guitar with a vintage trem is the PGM80. Now for the PGM301, which wasn't released until 2003 and available until 2008. It is nearly identical to the famous and very popular PGM300, which Paul used in the Mr. Big video for Just Take My Heart. The only significant difference between the 300 and 301 is that the former has a Floyd Rose style low pro edge tremolo, while the latter has a Goto GTC 101 fixed bridge. And depending on the year of production, it may have actually had a different middle pickup. Now the story goes that Paul created the original 301 by replacing the Floyd Rose style trem himself with a stop tail, and then Ibanez picked up the idea and released the 301. And as we've talked about numerous times on this show, at some point you just don't want or need the hassle of a floating tremolo. As for the naming convention, although it seems pretty straightforward, that is an entire episode into itself, and if you want an episode like that, let me know in the comments below. By 2014, I'd owned several PGM series guitars, nearly everything from the 100RE to the 400, the 500, and 2 or 3 PGM 301s. Why several 301s? Well, I'd always wanted to get a custom reddish orange black one like this. This color pattern was never commercially available, so if I wanted it, I'd have to get a custom job done. And since the 301 was my favorite of this series, I would buy beat up PGMs, hoping to one day refinish one. And one day, I came across this beater, in every sense of the word. Aftermarket pickups, dents everywhere, replaced middle pickup. It was beat to hell, and it cost me like $500, which was way below what they were selling for at the time. So the day came when I sent it out to a luthier to do a custom job, and after months of back and forth, it came back not the way I wanted it to. Instead of being the dark red and black that I wanted, it turned out more like a orange Dukes of Hazzard vibe, which I didn't hate. I mean, I love me some Duke boys, but it was not what I wanted. So it was my at-home, grab-it-to-noodle go-to. Now, I have been a huge fan of The Flash since the early 1990s with the John Wesley Shipp series on CBS. It came out on the heels of the Michael Keaton Batman movie, and I think I was like 11 or 12 at the time, so it hit me in all the right places. Barry Allen is my Flash. Then in mid-2013, the CW network announced that we were getting an Arrowverse spin-off series starring the Scarlet Speedster, with Grant Gustin in the titular role after a well-received guest star storyline on a couple of episodes of Arrow. It had been nearly a decade and a half since my favorite live-action version of The Flash, and I was jazzed for this show, and it did not disappoint for the first 4 or 5 seasons. We will not talk about the later years. Now, my favorite supervillains and cartoon bad guys were always the antithesis of the hero. I always loved when Voltron would fight evil Voltron, or Optimus Prime would fight evil Optimus Prime, and the Reverse Flash is literally the opposite of the Flash. And one day, while I was noodling on what I had named Daisy Duke at the time, I'd realized that the PGM400 was the color of the Flash, red and yellow, or in this case, gold. And if I wanted the reverse of that, I would need a guitar with a reverse headstock and a stop tail instead of tremolo, painted yellow with red accents. The perfect fit for the PGM301. So I made the decision to get the Dukes of Hazzard guitar repainted the way I wanted. Yellow with red highlights and red F-holes, the opposite of the 400. And because subtlety is not my thing, I had a big reverse flash symbol painted on the back. And luckily, because this has a stop tail and not a tremolo of any kind, it's stringed through so the logo could go right on the body and not on a cavity cover. And yeah, the guy that painted it also painted the pickups because, Does it sound terrible? It's not my favorite. It's not the best. And at some point I will replace these humbuckers. These were non-OEM pickups that were in it when I bought this as a beater, so I'm not too heartbroken about it. Then after I got it back, I renamed it Eobod Thawne, or the Reverse Flash, and I named the PGM400 Barry Allen. And yes, I do have a PGM500, which is again only slightly different than the PGM400, and I named that guitar Wally West. Do I ever play this? Yeah, all the time. When I need a guitar that's always tuned a half step down, this is the one I grab, because the 400 is tuned to standard, the opposite, or the reverse, of this one. There it is, the story behind my matching Flash family Ibanez PGM guitars, the 400 and the 301. I was going to add the info about the PGM500 too, but this episode is already pretty long, so I'll save that for a later episode, lest I make the algorithm gods angry. What do you think about these nerd-inspired guitars? Who's your favorite Flash? Barry Allen, Wally West, Jay Garrick, or someone else? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you to everyone who's already subscribed to the show, and we are still in the hunt to hit 5,000 subscribers. When we do, I'll be giving away that Sterling by Music Man AX20 that I featured back in February. To be entered to win, just subscribe to the channel, leave a comment on this video or any full episode. And to help us along to that goal of giving away that guitar, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, and share it with your friends. If you have the means and want to support the show even more, check out the Patreon page where you can become a roadie, a guitar tech, or a hired gun. You'll get cool swag, shoutouts, and free tickets to one of my stand-up shows. You can find my stand-up comedy dates at my website, tomtran.com. And if you want one of my custom t-shirts, they're available at tomtranshop.com. Don't forget to follow me on all the places like Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. The links to everything are below. Keep rocking, keep watching, and let the strings tell your story.